plan. This is an initial plan. Sometimes, by the way, in Mars business, we might refer to these things as terms of reference to some extent, but they are essentially an initial project plan. And then you can see that Rudy, the project manager, is now riding a unicycle and yet juggling all the things that he has to do. For example, he has to look at the deliverables and resources and time, and he's managing. And the reason he's on unicycle, because here the role of a project manager starts to become more complicated, and therefore we are just trying to demonstrate. But the project team is rallying behind him. So the project team, the stakeholders of the project need to be on board. Now let me take you through the next phase, which will be the feasibility phase. In the feasibility phase, there are two parts. One is the as-is, and the second is the to-be. As-is all about understanding the current state. So when we look at provide education process, we need to understand what the current state is, what's working today, what is not working today that needs to be done. Many times we tend to jump into the to-be without really doing a good analysis here. But there is a principle here in as-is. It's an 80-20 rule. In other words, we don't need to do exhaustive analysis in the as-is, but just do enough so all the stakeholders and all the project team members understand how things are today at this time in the current state. So let's walk through the steps here. The very first step is to confirm project scope and boundaries. So you can see this red line that's going around is the confirmation of scope. And why is it that? Because we just did scope in the previous phase. The reason for that is sometimes there is a time gap. It could be 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, 6 months, depending on the size of the project. There is a possibility that scope could change. So this is just a confirmation. The second is to map existing process understanding. And you can see the label 2 here is the existing process understanding. And it's, you can see what's happening in the process of providing education. The poor teacher is banging his head against the board. He's very frustrated. The students are not interested in learning. You can see this student is hanging by the fan. And the report card is pointing to C. That's what they're getting. And that's the current condition. And we saw that in the vision they would like to have A+, but current state is they have C grade. And children are not interested in learning. You see here child with a Z sleeping. There's a child throwing up. Here's one playing with a slingshot and so on. So this is the current state of the process, and all we do is to come to an understanding how things are today. Once we do that, the next step is to measure process performance, which obviously is C. We want it to be A, so we know there is a gap between A and C. Next step is to identify the root cause, and that's step 4, which points to the root cause analysis. Why are these issues happening here? For example, one of the root cause analysis that shows here is the books that they are reading were printed in 1906. So they are really working with dated material quite old, and that's potentially one of the root causes of the problems. And here's a book, by the way, 1812, from the time of Battle of Waterloo. So these books are old. There's an example of doing root cause analysis around all the current issues there might be. Once we do that, step 5 then is to identify improvement priorities. And there might be some quick wins, quick hits that can improve the business relatively quickly, which we can implement right away. We don't have to wait for the to-be. Takes place at this time. So if you look at our picture here,